Well, welcome everybody to Empowered Voices, Recovery to Resiliency.
Yay.
Yeah, fortunately, and maybe unfortunately, final episode in this first season run.
Yes.
In today's episode, basically how to support your child creating a healthy, nurturing home.
That's always super important,
Cool.
Dr.
Okay.
Farzad.
All right. So we'll basically explore how mothers in recovery from like an opioid stimulant, substance use disorder in general, can create a nurturing and healthy environment for their children.
Yes.
Like we said. We'll go into strategies. How can we foster safe, supporting homes? What's the importance of emotional well-being? And addressing maybe unique challenges during the postpartum period. Postpartum meaning all the time after delivery.
Yes.
So I deliver kiddo, and now I'm in the postpartum period. You know, generally speaking, we think of it being about a year, but probably more like 2 years.
You know, I never knew that, Dr. Farzad.
Yeah. I think officially in like medical term, it'll be about a year. But we oftentimes see in the world of substance use that the first 2 years can be uber critical, ultra critical.
Yes, my daughter's almost 3, and I still feel like I go through certain postpartum things, and it's still kind of hard getting everything situated. So I do feel you when you say that 2-year span.
Yeah, we have a couple kids. One of them is a teenager. We're still in the postpartum period. So it's over a decade later. But in today's episode, our goal is to kind of help our viewers and listeners understand the impact of a nurturing setting on a child's development, and how can they integrate maybe some of the recovery, parenting skills into promoting that health and resilience for both mom and baby, babies, kids, other family members, caregivers, et cetera, household.
Yes.
Cool? Amani.
All right. So on this lovely episode, we have Emilea. She is the epitome of our Empowered program. This young lady has just been such a rock star, the face of Empowered. And we also have our director, Rachel Mack. She is just absolutely wonderful. She's actually been along in my journey of recovery with me and helped me get to where I'm at today, and actually to where I am now as program coordinator of Empowered. So I am super excited to have these two special guests here with us today.
Thank you.
Can you please share a little bit about yourself, Emily?
Yes, my name is Emily. I've been in recovery for a little over a year.
Hey, congrats.
Thank you. I found Empowered through the rehab I was at, West Care, and I've just been listening to everything they say and been guiding myself to a healthy home.
You've been doing such an amazing job. So humble in her answer.
I know.
She's been out here rock starring it.
Thank you.
And Rachel Mack, can you please share with us a lot about yourself?
I'll share a little. Rachel Mack, program director. I have been working with this population for almost 8 years now, and population meaning pregnant and postpartum individuals with a history of substance use. Got into this field about my bachelor's program. I was able to get an opportunity to work at a local methadone clinic where I was able to learn a lot about opioid use disorder, medications for opioid use disorder, and what treatment looks like for different populations. Long story short, I started having a lot of pregnant individuals on my caseload and learning that their challenges and barriers are very unique, their needs are unique, and that they need that increased level of support in order to have a healthy outcome. And so, long story short, that's kind of how I got introduced to this population. Have loved it ever since, has found that it is definitely a niche for me. And throughout that time, I have my master's degree in social work, and I'm a licensed alcohol drug counselor. And I love the work that I do. Advocating is my favorite. Educating clients and just being able to be of support wherever I can be. Of course, being as a director, I don't get as much experience with clients these days, but when I do, it is always a pleasure. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. You are absolutely amazing with all the clients, and you can tell that you care because just your compassion and love just pours out.
Thank
and
you.
I know all the ladies who are part of Empower can say that about you,
Thank you.
Miss Rachel Mack.
Yeah, and not to minimize anyone who's with the Empowered program.
Exactly.
Okay?
No, of
everyone's
course.
amazing.
Yeah.
Everyone
But
is
she's here
absolutely
right now.
critical. I'm really glad that you're here with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Particularly because you've been there since the get-go.
Yeah,
right?
yes,
from the
I've
jump.
I've
A1.
known you since the get-go.
Yeah.
And of course, other folks like our co-founders, Dr. Nagar and Dr. Peterson. Dr. Peterson, or Andrew
Yes.
Peterson, is still like the executive director.
Right.
I'll let you know, without you all, Empowered would be nowhere. If I was running the show, Empowered would have failed 6 years ago.
You notice how we both laughed at the same time.
Okay, so that was my little plug.
Yeah, thank
All right.
you. Thank you.
But let's get started off with, let's call this Nurturing Home, Foundations, Pillars. What are some really important things that you all feel our viewers and listeners should know about creating that nurturing home? What does it look like for mothers or those that are in recovery? Let's start with Rachel.
I know for me, doing house visits when I've done them before, when clients are preparing for baby coming home, one thing that I always share with clients how important it is to limit distractions and create that peace, whatever peace means to them. Typically, that is an organized home, knowing where your things are, kind of like having things cleaned up and tidied, and eliminating distractions, whether that's visitors that don't need to be there, kind of having that routine within yourself so that once baby arrives, you can kind of start off on a better foot, a better foundation. Of course, that's not always easy, but creating that peace, I think, is the biggest thing, because when babies come home, it is such an adjustment, right? There's so many things going on, and the better you are prepared for that, the better that outcome could be. Of course, it still comes with stressors, but I like to share with clients during that house visit to help them figure out what creating that peace looks like for them.
And Miss Rachel, that sounds so simple.
Yeah,
like
of
creating peace, but that's super hard because you named quite a few things. First of all, eliminating distractions. What is a distraction? A lot of the times you don't know what is distracting you in your day-to-day period. And I loved how you said the routine. I'm going to be honest with you. That was the hardest thing coming to Empowered that I had to do, was the routine. And it took me a couple of months just to do the basics, getting up at a certain time, getting the kids in bed and eating fed at a certain time, and finding that structure. So, and that did help me find peace, but that is the hardest thing.
It is very hard. Yes, it is very hard. Absolutely.
So that's funny how you have mentioned that.
Yeah. It's definitely easier said than done. But once you kind of create that routine, you'll be able to see the benefits of it. Yeah.
I feel like I agree definitely with Rachel with everything that you said, because the house visits, they do help, even though I may not know what you guys think on your end, but on my end, it really does help. It really helps me. I call Quinny at the beginning of the week, and then I go to my therapy in the middle of the week, and then I have my house visit at the end of the week, and all of those touch points are right when I'm like, and then I get back on track.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. So another helpful thing I feel like is definitely before everything gets started, building a strong support group. Because all of those things, if you don't have a support group, it's going to be even harder.
Yeah.
You are so right. And we actually
goes a long way.
It does. And we actually have an episode on finding healthy support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's super important.
Mission critical.
Yes.
I think support is a mission. It's one of the tenets of recovery, resiliency, all those kinds of things. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. I'll throw an asterisk and a caveat into anything I say for this episode because I am by no means an expert.
Right.
I struggle with this. What I tell folks is of all the things that I've done in my life, having children and raising them has been the single most difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Say that again. Say that again.
On and preach.
By far and away. However, one, in my experience, and just knowing sort of like the physiological aspects of substance use, what goes on in our brains, what goes on in our bodies, I think that globally, and I could be absolutely wrong about this, and I would love to hear everyone's thoughts on it, same the public, viewers and listeners. I think recovery is probably the single most difficult thing a human being can endure, overcome that journey.
Yeah.
Because every cell in your body, I mean, really effectively,
Literally.
like literally, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot is saying No.
The opposite of
It's
what you're
saying the opposite. So now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, someone who has a substance use disorder trying to overcome the single most difficult thing that I can imagine, but I've not experienced. And then now we're throwing on to that the thing that I think is the single most difficult thing that I've ever come
a
across.
baby, pregnancy.
Holy
Yes.
moly. So I'm not doing the parenting stuff perfectly. You can ask my kids. They will attest to that 100%.
Mine too.
So that's all of this stuff is super obviously helpful. I love the keeping the peace thing. What I struggle with is keeping the peace. And now I'm trying to think of folks who are dealing with a substance use disorder where a lot of that is chaotic to begin with.
It
And
is.
it's
Your
not
mind is
peaceful.
in chaos
So
already.
look, for all you folks that are in this situation, just wow. Wow. That's all I can say is wow. I commend you. I respect you. I admire you.
Yes, round of applause.
I can't do what you all do. That's it. I can't do what you all do. So
just
in
to
light
add,
of that,
add to that, something I always tell clients is to just give themselves some grace because it is something new. And I always tell clients to be gentle with yourself and just kind of be patient with yourself. Reach out to support when you know that you need it. But absolutely, it's something new and it is challenging. It is very challenging, and every client has a unique experience. And so I think letting clients know to be patient and gentle and give themselves grace is, I think, kind of help motivate them through that as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. Sort of, it's a DBT, which is a form of therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy. But we talk a lot about not judging folks.
No, you're right.
And basically, numero uno is to not judge ourselves.
That's
And I love
that's
that,
the
Rachel.
hardest
the whole
part,
giving
though.
ourselves grace, being easy on ourselves.
That's hard though. We can
It
be our worst. We
is.
can be our worst enemy, and some of us are really used to that negative self-talk.
Yeah,
No.
and from what I've seen, Emily, I want to hear your thoughts on this. I feel like a lot of new parents who've never done it before, I did it particularly, I thought I was a horrible parent. I mean, I still do.
Yeah.
I still do.
Yeah,
I still think
absolutely.
I'm a horrible parent. But Emily, was any of that going on, like early on?
Absolutely. Actually, when I first found out that I was pregnant, I was currently using. So right then, I already felt like I was like the worst person
feel
ever.
you.
If I knew sooner, I would have definitely tried my hardest to stop. And then after that, I found out within a week. It took me about a week to get myself into rehab because I thought maybe I could do it on my own.
Sure.
And that was even harder than I didn't know who the dad was, and that was hard, and I still don't. That's hard, and just so many things. I don't have a job yet, and so many things are very like weighing on my shoulders, but at the same time, the Empowered program's with me, and they're definitely guiding me to being okay with myself and where I'm at and where I'm going to be.
You know what, Emily? It's so funny that you had shared your story just now because in my recovery, before I had heard about Empowered, I was in recovery in my state of relapse, and I found out I was pregnant. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to quit. But I've been trying to quit before I had gotten pregnant, and it wasn't working. Now with all these pregnancy hormones, I was homeless at the time. So it was like creating a nurturing home. I don't have a home to create or to nurture, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
those are like the obstacles that we deal with when you're in substance use disorder. So I felt like you. I already felt like a horrible mother because I already... I have a child that's being created inside of me, that's growing inside of me, developing inside of me. And I know every step, every day is an important day to their development. But just trying to quit was the hard part. Yes. And I'm so blessed that somebody referred me to Empowered because with them, I didn't have to. Now I know it may sound horrible, but it is a tear quitting, but I didn't have to basically lie about my relapses because relapse was happening, but I didn't have to lie about it, and that's what helped me take my step forward into actually being where I am today, abstinent.
And along those lines, when someone finds out that they're pregnant or they are pregnant and has a substance use disorder, a mental health disorder, globally, I feel fairly confident to say that probably the single best thing you can do for you and your baby is to just get treatment.
Right.
Now, I won't say exactly what that treatment looks like because it can look different for everybody.
Right.
Yes.
But get treatment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? There we go. Okay. No judgment. Just get treatment. If you're looking for the single best thing. Okay. But going back to sort of that postpartum period and the home, Emily, tell me, like, how do you prioritize? Because we talked about the emotional stuff, everything that's going on with you. So there's emotional well-being, there's physical well-being and safety. How do you prioritize those, or do they need to happen together? Can they happen together?
I feel like it's a wave, like the DNA, like a double helix.
I love it.
Like there's points where you have to definitely put your mental health first, and there's points where you definitely have to put your physical health, because if your physical health's not up, your mental health is going to be down as well.
That is so true.
I had an experience just after having my daughter where I just was not feeling okay. It was like 2 months after I had her, and I thought, oh, I'm doing pretty good. My emotions are pretty good, and it just hit me real hard. And I went to the Empowered program, told them what I was feeling, and they were able to guide me to a facility that I was able to get help. I had someone had watched my daughter, and I was able to, at that moment, take care of my mental health. So then I could very well and take care of both of our physical health. Because I feel like if I didn't reach that point and ask for help, that both of us would have been in danger of me either relapsing or hurting myself or hurting her.
Amen. Amen. And I love how you said, you mentioned twice, you called Empowered, which is a support, and then you had someone who was able to watch your beautiful daughter, and that's another support. I think that is, it just shows that in order to really have a nurturing home, you do need that support.
Yeah. Sounds like an important word.
Yeah.
I feel like we mentioned that a lot.
That's why we have a whole episode. Because I swear it is powerful.
Of course.
I tried recovery without support, and I was still in recovery. It was hard. It was
how about this?
really
it's more
hard.
It's probably more challenging.
It was, yes. For like
Yeah.
you said, everybody's journey is different, and for me, it seemed like it was impossible. But like you said, it was very challenging. It wasn't impossible, but it was challenging. I just want to say that for the record. Nothing's impossible.
Exactly. We try to keep away from the absolutes, right?
No, for real.
Right.
And 75% of the word can't is can. So, how to say that too.
love
You
that.
learn something new.
She's so good.
That's a good one.
You know, the other recurring thing that we've had, and Rachel, I'm going to get to you. I promise.
No, you're good.
The
You're
other recurring
good.
thing that we've had is Amani. I believe in all of our episodes thus far, we'll say, my grandfather used to say, or my grandfather told. So I'm waiting for that this episode.
Yes.
Okay? I'm hoping we get something. But Rachel, along those lines of what our patients, because emotional well-being, physical safety and well-being, I feel like they're intertwined, and I don't know the answer.
Yes.
We do something at Empowered on intake, which is we try to find out folks' immediate, urgent, what's your
Needs.
most immediate, urgent need.
Yes.
And maybe that's a way that I can use to sort of figure out. But then along the journey, then how do you tease? But what are
Things
you finding
change.
with our patients, clients? How do you all help? What do you see as being more, I'm throwing up air quotes for listeners, more important?
Yeah, so as you mentioned at intake that we do an assessment to determine the most urgent need, and we like to get from the client what do they think their most urgent need is and how can we help them with that. Really big on meeting the client where they're at and creating those personalized care plans. At times though, the client's goals might be different than what the goal could be a healthier goal, a healthier outcome. So, for example, if clients are coming in at intake, and if they are currently using and they're not in treatment and are currently pregnant and have not had prenatal care, we're really big on providing them with education on why that could be a goal worth starting on, whether getting into prenatal care or getting into treatment, presenting options. We're really big on talking about harm reduction. So kind of having those type of conversations. But again, it's up to the client what they want to work on and what they want to start on. Sometimes we've had clients come in that situation and their most urgent need is food or clothing or hygiene products or emergency shelter. That's where we're going to start. But again, following up with, okay, remember you mentioned that you are pregnant and that you are currently using, that you're not in treatment. Let's talk about what goals or options you think might work for you, and let you know what's available in the community that you have access to. But again, supporting them through that harm reduction education, but making sure that the client is a part of creating that personalized care plan, and letting them know that we're there and we're ready to advocate and connect them to those resources as soon as possible. Some clients in that situation, if they're struggling from dental pain, they can't even think about getting into prenatal care,
yes.
going into treatment when their
Nothing.
mouth, they're so sore, they're so uncomfortable, might not be able to eat, might be losing weight. So that might be what they want to start
Lack
with.
of nutrition for
Lack
the baby.
of nutrition, right? All of those
Yes.
things, and so
And then gum health is very important in pregnancy.
absolutely. So we're really big on advocating, providing them that education, harm reduction, but again, meeting them where they're at, but also explaining why, if and when they're pregnant, wanting them to kind of get an understanding from the client. What are your goals with this baby? What would you like to see? What outcomes would you like? And reminding them, okay, if you said you'd like to bring your baby home, what are the steps to take to get to that? Usually prenatal care is positive, right? Being enrolled in treatment, whatever treatment
Yes.
options is positive, and stable housing, and increasing the support amongst that. But it's a lot. Sometimes clients have a lot going on at
lot going
once.
on.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot going on at
Yes.
once.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then it's like prioritizing. Sort
Right.
of. Yeah, and I
Right.
love that you intertwine sort of the physical because, again, I sort of want to stress that we talk about mental and physical well-being
Right.
As being separate things, but they
They're
are
one.
so intertwined, and oftentimes you can't have one without the other.
Yes,
That's the reality
it
of it.
is.
The dental pain thing, if anyone has ever had dental pain
Yeah.
or whatever, you're sick, you
Right.
have the flu. My gosh, when those things are going on,
Yeah.
everything else, I am
It's
an
just so much harder.
incapacitated
Okay,
Yeah.
stop the
blob.
world.
Yeah.
blob, right? You want me to now focus on my recovery and taking care of a child? Ain't happening.
No. I
was
I'm
just
ta-
thinking
I'm
that.
tapping out. I'm tapping out. So who's gonna come and help me?
Yes, and that's where that support comes in.
Yeah. Yes.
And
again.
we see a lot of that, the comorbidities between mental health, substance use, and medical. And even on the medical end, we see a lot of sexually transmitted infections and,
Yes.
and how that needs to be brought attention to, especially some diagnoses are extremely time sensitive.
Yes.
And so needing to get them connected to those resources. And so it can be a lot at once. This population often experiences domestic violence, unstable housing.
Yes.
So many different layers, right? So many different layers. So again, just kind of one thing at a time and getting that buy-in from the client. Oh, how can we help you? What would you like to work on? And letting them know resources are available, and we're ready to refer you and connect you to that and be there with you through that whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And sort of like, looping this back around to the first part of our discussion, which is what does a nurturing home look like?
Right.
To boil it down to the fundamentals and try to make it as easy as possible, I oftentimes think that having a nurturing home for your kiddos, your kids, your infants, your babies, your toddlers, whatever it may be, it oftentimes is in line with and overlaps what's a nurturing home for yourself in recovery.
No,
Right.
it
We,
is.
we're talking about recurring themes like
Right.
have food,
Right.
security,
No, really.
have housing,
Right.
security. So we talk about shelter, right?
Right.
And then
Yes.
what? Clothing?
Clothing,
We're talking about
yes.
clothing
Yeah.
and basic needs. Fortunately, it's not rocket science because kids are uber super resilient.
Yeah.
Yes.
Resilient, right? And just like ourselves, once you get some basic needs covered,
Yeah.
you're doing pretty awesome
Yeah.
from
You are.
providing that nurturing home.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had mentioned that I think that for someone in recovery, that's the most difficult thing on the planet that I can think of. Okay. And how I tap into that as sort of not the silver lining, but like the diamond encrusted
I
lining
love it. Bling,
is that these folks are equipped with resiliency and
Yes.
skills that
Yeah.
a lot of folks might not be or
Right.
have to work really hard to get. Emily, I want to hear from you. How do you incorporate those skills now, right? I mean, you're in recovery. You've obviously done all these amazing things to sustain your recovery, maintain your recovery. Which of those can you sort of bring into quote unquote parenting practices or being a parent?
I believe that one of the skills that is really important is resilience because things are going to come whether or not you're in recovery.
Yes.
And whether you're not doing a good job, whether you're not trying, things and challenges in life are always going to come hit you and they're going to hit you hard.
Yes.
And it's really resilience, I believe, is the fact that you have to, even if it comes, even if you mess up, how you're going to handle that.
Yeah.
So in my
Love
own
it.
experience, recently I did have a small relapse. And even though I've been doing all these things and I'm with my daughter and I'm all these things, and I just was slacking on listening to my sponsor, not changing my people, places, and things, which is really
Sure.
important.
It
so I go
is.
back to old habits, go back to old things. And right when that happened, I contacted my sponsor, I contacted Empowered, I contacted my other support in the AA program, which was able to help guide me. And even though I messed up, the resilience of how to handle that afterwards. So I go to
Amen.
meetings once a
Bounce
week. I
back.
go to my classes for the Empowered once a week. I try to stay busy with cleaning and try to stay busy with paying attention what my daughter needs, things like that.
That's amazing, Emily.
Thank you.
So amazing, because it is hard to bounce back. It truly is super hard because I know for me, when I would have my slips, it was, I would beat myself up. And it was hard, like you said, the mental with the physical. I would beat myself up, so I didn't feel like doing anything. I didn't feel like I wanted to do better, but I just kept beating myself up, and which turned into a low-key pity party. And so I think that is so amazing that you're able to see it, bounce right back, because that is the key.
Yeah, Rachel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that. Thank you for sharing that. How again we keep talking about how important it is, that self-awareness and self-reflection, as well as leaning on support, and that it is crucial in order to be successful, and knowing when to do that. It's hard. It's hard asking for help.
It is.
It's really hard asking for help. But you mentioned a good point about resilience. How that impacts really anyone that is parenting. Difficult things are going to come. Challenges, obstacles, barriers, things that unforeseen circumstances, right?
And never at the right time.
Never at the right time. Never at the right time. But it's going to happen. But knowing how to bounce back and use the tools and resources that you have, and then keeping in mind how important it is through that to maintain that stability within the home, and understanding how that affects our child. I think you mentioned a good thing, Farzad, that something that we talk about in the parenting class that I facilitate, Circle Security, that there's no perfect parent. There's no perfect parent, and that our children, not only they're resilient, our children are so forgiving.
They are.
Right? They are so forgiving. Bless their little hearts. They are so
they
forgiving.
are.
And so when we mess up and we do something wrong, or we have a rough day or a rough moment, a rough week, how to self-reflect and how to get through that, and then also at some point modeling that for our child, that it's okay. Things happen, mistakes happen, but how do we work through them, and how do we show them in a healthy way? How do we work through that?
Yes. I love that. And that parenting class
It's
you
a
were
great
speaking
class,
of.
yeah.
It really was amazing, Rachel. It really helped me to know because part of a nurturing home is, I know sometimes I get anxious a lot. And so they have a part called shark music. What's your shark music? Basically that dun what's going to make you kind of go on edge.
Yes.
And so that helped me, because I know leaving the house for me was huge in the beginning of my recovery. And I know that I could not, I just was always late. It was super stressful. I would end up canceling things because it was just too much.
Yeah.
And it was just one. I just had my daughter at the time, but it was so much. So having to know my shark music, I would plan ahead of time.
Right.
And then I would know, even though I probably was tired, I still would have to get up early. And that's where you guys said that routine.
Yes.
And I had my support help me recognize my shark music. What can I do to? So Miss Rachel helped me. And then our therapist, Rachel Williams, she helped me to realize what kind of things I can do, and let's get a routine going so that you're able to notice the shark music, so we can have a more peaceful home.
Right.
Yes.
Because it was just too much. Yes, my heart was just beating.
Yeah, and for those of you that may have missed this, Amani, your reference to shark music is specifically Jaws?
Yes.
For a stressful moment when Jaws is getting ready to attack, versus what I'm more familiar with now, which is the Baby Shark as the shark music, which is a more positive thing. So Jaws and not Baby Shark.
I'm going to be honest, Baby Shark, if you hear that a couple of times, it'll become Jaws.
One of the most viewed, listened to songs on the planet ever.
Yes,
in history.
it's Baby Shark. My daughter loves it.
There's a term that you all use, which is modeling, that I want to get to. So I'm going to put that on the back burner.
Love it.
But can you give us a little bit, Rachel, about what are some of the topics and themes maybe in the parenting classes?
Yes.
And then I want to hear from Emily, who's currently in the parenting classes.
Yeah.
What her sort of takeaways are.
Yeah, so the parenting class that I facilitate is Circle of Security Parenting. If you haven't heard of it, look it up. It's amazing. It's an international curriculum that essentially helps caregivers, right? And we say caregivers, right? Because sometimes the individuals that are parenting might not be the biological parent. So we talk a lot about caregivers. Sometimes the children have multiple caregivers. That might be grandparent, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, whoever. So it mentions a lot about caregivers and how caregivers can understand the needs of their child, how to meet those needs while trying to also meet our individual needs. It talks about how individuals who are going through mental health challenges, substance use, how that impacts our child with how we could be gone or absent, and how absent impacts our child. Understanding what those needs are for our child and understanding how important it is to meet them all the way around the circle. So it talks about how children go in and out of the circle, and it's just an analogy where your hands are the safe haven for the child. Your hands are the safe haven, the secure safety net for your child. And they're going in and out of that circle. So when they're going out of the circle, you need to be able to support them being curious. And what does that look like? Sometimes clients have a hard time allowing their child to go out and wanting to be there with them and not wanting to, support that curiosity that children naturally have, right?
And
natural
that
part of
creates
their
shark music.
And that can create shark music, right? Naturally wanting to support their child going out and exploring, being curious, wanting to protect that, or kind of just having those fears and anxiety and not allowing that, but knowing how important it is to the child's development to be able to go out, and then them coming back in to our safe haven, being available, being present. What does that look like? And what does that look like to our child? What is our body language so that our child knows, you can come to me, or right now this is a good time. What does that look like? It also talks about when the child is coming in and out, as sometimes there are what do they call it in the breaking the
ruptures and repair.
Thank you. Ruptures and repair. And so how ruptures happen within that circle, how to repair it. What does that look like? Again, modeling that for a child, that yes, things happen, things go wrong, but I'm here to repair that, for you to know you are that important to me. This relationship is that important to me because I'm going to repair it. It also talks about what being gone looks like to our child. Sometimes being gone can be physically gone, maybe serving time in jail, some type of CPS case where the family is not a family unit, but also being gone physically there. So if a client is experiencing domestic violence or in an unhealthy relationship, they might be there physically, but mentally and emotionally, they're gone from that child and checked out. So again, it talks about how to be that support, how to be that structure for the client, for their babies as they're going in and out of the circle, how to be consistent, and why that is so important, as well as meeting our needs through that. It talks about as a caregiver, giving yourself need for time out.
Yes.
You might need a time out yourself, right? Because it talks about you can't pour from an empty cup. At times our child, they're needing their cup refilled, and they're coming to us to do that.
And we are empty.
So if we're empty and they're empty, everybody's empty. What are we doing? What are we doing?
It's not a nurturing home.
It's not a nurturing home at that point, but that happens.
Yes.
How do we pick ourselves back up?
Yes.
And how do we meet those needs and understand why that is so important? So it talks a lot about what that looks like. It's a 8-week curriculum, and each chapter builds on each other. It's like a pyramid. It all builds together to where at the end, the caregiver can understand why this is important for me. And it talks about how our children are so forgiving and all of that, you know, and not being perfect, and just being a good enough parent.
Yes.
Being a good enough parent is what it talks about.
Right, and what I like about this is that I myself can learn, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is not, I don't think that this is teaching, this is just like, hello, how do you not know this stuff?
No.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think most folks do. So
We
remind me
don't.
again when the next 8-week series is
I
starting.
got you.
So things like this are really important. But I want to hear from Emily, who's currently in, right?
Here in the parenting class.
Yes, I'm taking a parenting class called TBRI. It's through Raising Hope. And it stands for Trust-Based Intervention, which it also has a circle of security, but it pretty much is more targeted towards children's behavior and what their need is behind that behavior.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
for example, if they're throwing a fit, or if they're crying, or if they're being bad for some reason, whatever quote unquote you think being bad is,
Being
taking
bad.
the
Air
shoes
quotes.
or
Yeah.
throwing
Air
their
quotes,
food, we really need to pay attention. Okay, why are they having that behavior, and what need is behind that behavior that we can address? Because if we address that need, more than likely that behavior goes away.
Yeah.
Yes, that is so true.
The next class I will be taking soon will be how to implement those techniques and things that I learned in that first class.
Perfect. I mean, that's basically
Yeah.
we're going to have you back at some point.
Yeah,
to talk about those
definitely.
strategies.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amani, what has been sort of, if you've had any exposure to the parenting
You
class?
know what's funny?
Yeah.
I've taken both of them.
Yeah.
Because I need it. I need all the parenting classes. But you know, it's so funny when Rachel had mentioned about her class, because that was one of the first parenting classes I had taken. And when I had taken that parenting class, I was still in my relapse part of my recovery. And so for me, having your child go out to explore, no. Do you know what exploring got me?
Yeah, right.
You know where I'm at because I was exploring. So it was very hard, and literally just learning how to healthily, if that's a word,
Totally is.
how to allow your child to really go out and be Dora the Explorer or Diego the Explorer and go out there and explore, but with you being comfortable. Because I know my child, I call her an adrenaline junkie because she does things I'm like, you really are trusting in the Lord. Because she'll do things and you're just like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
And so with her exploring, it really gave me that shark music. It really was like, no. And picking up to the TBRI class, really knowing what does she want? Like, is there a way that I can help her to explore, meet that need, but without really saying no and not meeting that need? I don't know. Did I just
Yeah.
gibberish around?
I was saying, and doing it in a safe way. Me and Amani, our daughters, are in the same tumbling class.
Yes.
So that's a great example of her wanting to explore, you not having to say no, her getting
Yeah.
out that energy, and
Yes.
that need to be curious in a safe, controlled
Environment.
environment.
Yeah.
Even though she'd be all over the place.
Yeah.
But
do, and still get injured.
It's right. It's beautiful though. It's beautiful though.
Right. And so what I'm taking away is that, and I want to sort of get to, in closing, what's like our call to action? Maybe what's the first step folks can take to creating this nurturing home or reaching out to feel like they can be a good parent. But before that,
Okay.
I want to say that what it seems like to me, this is how I believe wholeheartedly, and I wish it was not true. I wish that I was born innately with the ability to parent.
Me
Oh, this would be
too.
so easy.
Yes.
This new baby came in, and I'm
Yes.
just going to know what to do. Not for me. Maybe not for others.
Right.
So don't beat yourself up if you feel like, am I doing this right? What's
Yes.
going on? How come I
Right.
don't know? Why does it seem like everyone else is such a good parent and maybe I'm not? Why am I this loser? Why am I failing?
Yeah.
Let's just try to
Yeah.
chuck that to the wayside.
Yeah.
Okay. And then before we get to the closing, I want to come back to the modeling.
Yes.
A cool study. I'll try to boil it down to its most simplistic thing. So they would take like an adult, and they would have this adult try to perform a task and sit there with it despite not being able to. So we talk about resiliency,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
And that's when that's the empowered, right? Recovery to resiliency.
Yes.
Okay. So this adult struggled, right? But wouldn't just put it aside and wouldn't give up.
Okay.
And little kids were watching. So they were being modeled the behavior of resiliency. And
I love
and
it.
then adult would leave the room, and then kids individually would be given some kind of puzzle. The ones that were modeled with the adult continuing, persevering, continued and persevered.
Right.
And the ones that weren't, after like 5 seconds, would take this thing and chuck it across the room.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is how you guys had mentioned modeling, or you all had mentioned modeling. It is super important,
It
as
is.
best as you can, because our kiddos, they are sponges. They will model your behaviors. And if they see, despite all your setbacks, despite these challenges, despite this roadblock, despite this obstacle, you sort of spin a positive light on it. I
Yeah.
can overcome. I will continue.
Right.
And oh boy, what better way to set up a kiddo, right?
Right,
Despite
for
having
success.
all these other non-opportunities.
You are
and-
right.
Yeah, so there you go. I feel like modeling is kind of a good one.
Have you heard of the Bobo doll? experiment?
Tell me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the Bobo doll has to do with modeling. In the psychology field, they had a Bobo doll experiment where they had a Bobo doll and they would show an adult playing with the Bobo doll, either violently, really violent, or really loving, gentle, nurturing. And the kids who saw the parent or the adult play violently with the Bobo doll did the exact same thing and more. And the kids, kids always got to double up us. And then the kids who saw the parent or the adult playing nicely with the Bobo doll truly was just nice, and they showed it tender love and care, which I think is so crazy, but goes back to the nurturing home. If we actually model these supports, these routines, that our children, as they grow up, they'll start to see that.
Yeah.
Right. Organization, all of that.
Yes,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Good people, places, and things. 'Cause that really makes a difference.
Right. Soak. They're just soaking it all.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Sponges.
Yeah. Emily, give us your one-liner. What's sort of your call to action for our viewers and listeners who are maybe in this situation, have a family member, whatever it may be, to move towards?
Ask for help.
Amen.
I know it's really hard because, for me personally, didn't want to feel weak. I wanted to do it on my own, and I wanted to be like, I can do this. But in terms, I can do this.
Yes.
Help is just like, for example, snow boots. It's not going to walk you up the hill. It's just going to be a tool to make it easier.
Ahead.
I
Go
love
ahead.
that. Round
Go
of applause,
ahead,
speakers,
yes.
snaps, all of that.
We need to get that copyrighted.
No,
trademark,
for real.
That part right there, don't
something.
say it anymore.
Holy-
No,
yeah.
no.
That was
That's
amazing.
copyrighted.
That was great.
Oh my
That was
God.
I
beautiful.
love
Wow.
it. I love it
Snow
because that's
boots.
so true.
Yeah, that was so good.
Toolkit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go right into
I
the
love
tool.
that.
Yep. The Batman
Okay.
tool belt.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love it.
Snow boots. Okay,
I don't know how to
Rachel,
follow that.
moment.
I was going to say that was really good.
It was.
I think helping the community understand that there is help available.
Yes.
There's programs like ours that are wanting to be there, wanting to support, wanting to educate,
Yes.
wanting to advocate, and knowing that there's help available. So when you're ready to be open and willing to make that call and be present and put yourself first when you're ready.
I love it. I have to say, my grandpa used to say, baby, don't cry, baby, don't get any milk. And it's so true. You have to ask for help. A lot of the times it was my pride that got in the way, or I want to do this on my own, or I'm by myself. Girl, you don't need to be by yourself. You don't have to do this on your own. There are
Right, you
people
don't
who
have to.
actually really want to help you.
Yes.
There are people who really want to see you succeed. You got to go find those people.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where the treasure was for me, is learning to ask for help.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would have to say that's the key. And finding my peace. That routine was my peace.
Yeah.
That nurturing home goes with peace.
Yes.
And I used to, someone had told me, they were like, oh, you have your own place now. I was like, yep, all by myself. And they said, with all that peace. And I was like, amen. That is
Right.
so true.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And we're going to wrap up. Okay, I'll give sort of the closing statement for our listeners and whatnot. The last thing and obviously thank you. And Amani's going to thank you. Wonderful, amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I love it when we can have actual patients and clients on the podcast, because
Yes.
you're real. I'm this insignificant nothing, but you are everything. Okay, so thank you for being here, Rachel. All of that.
Yes.
All of that million thank yous for doing everything that you do.
Thank you.
Everything that you've created, you created Empowered. Okay, you were
Thank you.
pivotal. So amazing. I wanted to say sort of this before I blank on what it is that I wanted to say. You were talking about, of course, I'm in the interest of time. Oh my gosh, yes. We're talking about home, postpartum, and babies.
Yes.
And I don't think we've even brought up this word, the proverbial elephant in the room, which is Department of Family Services, also known as CPS or Child Protective Service. We haven't talked about that. And I will tell you, that is tied for the number one fear. The other
Big
one
girl.
is, am I hurting my baby? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But tied for the number one fear. But stay tuned. We are working to actively try to get an episode where we can collaborate with our friends over at DFS CPS.
Oh, that'd be great.
To have a
Yes.
whole episode surrounding that, because it is such a massive, and it ties in, right? We're talking about creating a nurturing home. Let me tell you, that's really kind of all they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yes,
They just want to
you're
know is
right.
baby safe. But I don't want to give
Yeah,
anyone away any more details.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay. Okay, so in closing, thank you for listening,
Yes, thank you very
watching the episode,
Yes.
Empowered Voices. Please be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Also, don't forget to rate and share with others who may find our information and discussion topics helpful. If you have a recovery-related topic you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please visit, it's called empoweredmoms.org/podcast. With that, this is our final episode in this first season of Empowered Voices. Stay tuned for bonus episodes.
Yay!
Hopefully, and a second season coming soon.
Yes, and thank you so much for taking time out your day, Miss Emily and Miss Rachel Mack. We really appreciate you guys because I know it's hard raising a nurturing home. And so thank you for taking the time to make time for us to share your experiences with us
Thank
today.
you.
It's been a pleasure and an honor. If you live in Southern Nevada or in Reno, Carson City, Churchill County, or in Lyon County in Northern Nevada, and you're pregnant or recently had a baby and using opioids or stimulants for any reason, there is non-judgmental help available to you. No referral or insurance is required. Visit empoweredmoms.org for information or to request services. Again, empoweredmoms.org. If you live outside of these areas, we really encourage you to find resources in your community.
Empowered Voices is a podcast production of the Empowered program at Roseman University College of Medicine, supported by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Overdose Data to Action grant through the Southern Nevada Health District. This project has been funded by grant number NH28CE003534 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The contents are those of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official views of, nor an endorsement by the Southern Nevada Health District, CDC, or the U.S. government. Hosted by myself, Dr. Farzad Kamyar, and Amani Wilson. Executive producers are Dr. Andrea Peterson and Jason Roth, with production assistance by Rachel Mack. Writing assistance by Troy Stefano. Recorded at the Video Podcast Studio at Canico Media in Las Vegas, Nevada. For information about this podcast and past and future episodes, visit empoweredmoms.org.